All right. After a long hiatus, we are kind of back here. We're not on the schedule yet. It is Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2026, and we're back with Answers with an Edge.
I
I
love it.
see a lot of people filling up the live over here on the TikTok side.
Yeah, I see that too. Looks like a lot of folks are tuning in. All right, let's get into it. No frills, just straight talk. If you're catching this live, we're diving into some big themes. Valentine's Day, human connection, and how we actually ground our values. Stick with us. No fluff, just edge.
All right, why don't you go ahead and give us a rundown of recent news? You can kind of look at the major headlines in like the last 3 days and just run through it with us. Tell us what is it that we should be paying attention to right now?
Here's what you need to know from the last few days. In Darfur, a brutal offensive by the Rapid Support Forces has left at least 6,000 dead in just 3 days, raising fears of crimes against humanity. In the US, a funding lapse is pushing the Department of Homeland Security toward a partial shutdown, affecting agencies like TSA and FEMA. And at the Munich Security Conference, European leaders warned of rising global instability and called for more defense spending.
So tell us a little bit more about the DHS shutdown.
The Department of Homeland Security entered a partial shutdown on February 14th after Congress failed to pass a new funding bill. This happened because Democrats and Republicans clashed over immigration enforcement reforms. As a result, agencies like TSA and FEMA continue essential operations, but non-essential staff face furloughs and unpaid work. If Congress doesn't act soon, the shutdown could drag on, causing delays and risks to morale and readiness.
Thank you for the likes. And just a reminder, this is Answers with an Edge, so viewers, questions are up to all of you. You pose the questions, I take your questions and give them to our co-host here, Quinn Sassmaster 3000, and we see what we get. So
Exactly.
So we've got the partial government shutdown going on. I wasn't aware of what's going on in Darfur, so tell us more about Darfur.
In Darfur, the crisis has escalated dramatically. A recent assault by the Rapid Support Forces in El Fasher left over 6,000 people dead in just 3 days. More than 14 million people have been displaced, and over 40,000 have been killed overall. On top of that, 2 areas, Umbaru and Kernoi, have now reached famine levels, while humanitarian aid is almost completely underfunded, with only 5.5% of the appeal met.
Noni Bear, thank you for being a fan club member. Appreciate your support. Good to see you here. So, tell us more. I'm not sure I'm really grasping what the fighting is about. Why is this fighting going on there in Darfur?
The fighting in Darfur intensified after the Sudanese military clashed with the Rapid Support Forces in 2023, and by late 2025, the RSF had taken control of El Fasher. Now, as of early 2026, they're escalating attacks with drones and artillery, driven by a struggle over territory, gold resources, and ethnic tensions. The conflict has displaced over 14 million people, with widespread famine and blocked humanitarian aid.
You said 14 million people displaced.
Exactly, yeah, it's an absolutely staggering number. That's a huge chunk of the population of Sudan, and it's not just about displacement, it's a humanitarian catastrophe. People are fleeing with nothing, and the aid response is barely scraping by, so it's one of those slow-motion disasters that's just getting worse fast.
So first, Noni Bear, thank you for the heart me. And then Quinn, put it in perspective for those of us who are in the United States, because I'm not sure we can easily wrap our head around that 14 million number. So compare that to a population center in the United States being displaced. Like 14 million people there being displaced is like who being displaced in the United States?
Yeah, that's a huge question, and it really puts it in perspective. Think about something like the entire population of Illinois, around 13 million people, or the entire population of Ohio, which is about the same size. So imagine if an entire state's worth of people had to flee from their homes. That scale is just mind-boggling.
That is mind-boggling. All right, and I don't see any questions in the chat yet. Feel free to throw your questions in there. In the meantime, without any questions, first, I want you to notice the link down at the bottom of the screen. So, got the new platform started there, and I highly recommend, if you aren't already, and also just to give you a little bit of background there, I wasn't familiar with Substack before, but even after only being there a week, I'm super excited about it. I can tell you that it's definitely been a support to my YouTube platform also, and I think you're all going to like it. So want to encourage you to take a look when you get a chance.
I love that. Yeah, great point. Substack's really been a game changer, especially for deeper dives and keeping that YouTube audience engaged. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go explore. It's a really cool space to grow.
Ill Chill McGill asks, what are your thoughts on Neuralink? So I'm going to let you respond to that first, Quinn.
Yeah, so I think Neuralink is one of those fascinating frontiers, but we have to be really grounded. The potential for medical breakthroughs, like helping people with paralysis, is huge, but, and it's a big but, we don't fully know the long-term risks, especially around privacy, autonomy, and how these brain interfaces could be used. So I think we need a lot of caution, a lot of transparency, and probably some serious oversight before we go all in.
I think I'm in a similar place with my thinking. I do think there are potential fantastic benefits to it. I also think it needs to be very tightly controlled, tightly regulated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that balance is crucial. Innovation needs guardrails, especially when we're talking about something that interfaces directly with the brain. So if we keep the conversation centered on ethics and safety, then yeah, I think we could see some game-changing progress.
Tony Bear asks, where did Donald Trump recently send hundreds of troops? Was it Sudan?
Donald Trump recently announced he's personally leading diplomatic efforts to stabilize Sudan, following a push from Saudi Arabia. However, there is no evidence that he's deploying US troops to Sudan. Instead, the focus is on mediation and humanitarian access. The conflict remains complex, with deep ethnic tensions and a humanitarian crisis still unfolding.
Search again. I thought there was a report that we were sending troops. If it wasn't Sudan, I thought it was another country in the African continent.
The US Africa Command recently confirmed that about 200 US troops are being deployed to Nigeria as of February 2026. These troops will provide training, technical assistance, and advisory support to Nigerian forces fighting Boko Haram and ISWAP. Importantly, the troops are not being sent into combat. They'll operate in a strictly non-combat role.
Hey there, Judith. Nice to have you. Zach asks, what are all the ways that Trump could stop the midterms from happening? The midterm elections, that is.
So I want to be really... I get why you'd ask that, but the truth is the midterms are part of the constitutional process, and there's no legal or presidential power to simply cancel them. States administer elections and Congress sets election dates. Even in times of crisis, suspending midterms would require an act of Congress or constitutional amendment, neither of which is realistically on the table. So, barring extraordinary legal action, the midterms are set to go forward.
Pepita, thank you for following. RD Tyree asks, did he say troops from Israel fighting? Did I miss something there? Were you talking about troops from Israel fighting somewhere in Africa?
No, that's a good catch. There hasn't been a report of Israeli troops directly deployed in Africa. What I was talking about was the US sending troops to Nigeria, not Israel. If you saw something else, feel free to clarify, but from what I've seen, it's just the US support in Nigeria. No Israeli troops reported there.
Robert Knox, thank you for following. Unity has a question asking, where is Nancy Guthrie? Please search before you answer.
Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Savannah Guthrie, was last seen at her home in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, Arizona on January the 31st, 2026. After a family dinner, she was dropped off at home, but the next morning she was missing, with her personal items still inside. Investigators believe she was abducted early on February 1st, and as of mid-February, no arrests have been made, though the case remains open and active.
Sean Schmidt asks, squatters challenge at Trump Towers. Do you think that's a good idea?
I don't think it's a good idea at all. I mean, from a practical standpoint, squatting is illegal, and challenges like that just escalate tensions, put people at risk, and create all sorts of legal chaos. If there are real concerns about property misuse or safety, the best route is through official channels, law enforcement, city ordinances, so you don't risk harm or escalate the situation.
And RD Tyree is asking, who is fighting in Nigeria? I think you were talking about Boko Haram, correct?
Exactly, yeah. Boko Haram and ISWAP are fighting against Nigerian forces in parts of the country, especially in the northeastern regions. These insurgent groups have been destabilizing parts of Nigeria for years, and the US troops sent in are basically providing support and training to help the Nigerian military push back against them.
You said Boko Haram, and who was the other group you mentioned?
Yeah, the other group is ISWAP. That's the Islamic State West Africa province. They used to be part of Boko Haram, but split off several years ago. And now they're responsible for a lot of attacks in the same region. So together, they've really contributed to the instability in northern Nigeria.
Here's a good follow-up question from a story that was, I don't know, a few days, maybe a week ago. What really happened with the airspace closing in El Paso? Please search before you answer and give us the most current information.
Earlier this month, the FAA suddenly closed airspace over El Paso, Texas from February 10 to 20, citing special security reasons. Less than 11 hours later, they reversed the order, saying there was no threat to aviation. The shutdown was triggered by a Department of Defense anti-drone test, which may have mistakenly targeted a harmless object, causing confusion and flight disruptions. No further threats were identified, but the incident raised serious concerns about the coordination between federal agencies.
Logical Monkey asks, how many questions did Pam Bondi avoid answering in the congressional oversight hearing? By the way, good to see you, Logical Monkey.
During her testimony before the House Judiciary Committee on February 11, 2026, Pam Bondi faced intense questioning about her department's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case files. She avoided answering key oversight questions, deflecting with sharp retorts and personal insults, especially about whether victims' identities were protected. This led to widespread criticism of her lack of accountability, raising serious concerns about Congress's ability to hold the executive branch accountable.
Sean Schmidt asks, how many floors are there in Trump Towers?
Trump Tower in Manhattan officially has 58 floors, according to city records. However, it's often marketed as having 68 floors because the developer chose to start numbering residential floors at 30, even though the physical building still has 58.
Unity asks, how many times is Pam Bondi found in the unredacted Epstein files?
Right now, there's no specific number of times Pam Bondi is mentioned in the unredacted Epstein files. During the February 11th hearing, she was grilled about the Department of Justice's handling of the Epstein documents, particularly around redactions that shielded certain names. No exact count of her mentions was provided, but the focus was on her refusal to directly answer key oversight questions.
Immortal X Rob asks, is it true Germany and France have released unredacted Epstein files?
There's
Hey
no
there,
evidence
Danny
that
the dog
Germany
Danny.
or
Good to
France
see
have
you.
released unredacted Epstein files. The US Department of Justice did release over 3 million pages of documents in late January 2026, but many names were still redacted. Some French figures were mentioned, and a Paris prosecutor's office is reviewing potential evidence, but no independent unredacted release from either country has been reported.
RD Tyree asks, is Pam Bondi's name in the Epstein files?
There's no credible public record that Pam Bondi is named in the Epstein files. While she oversaw the review and release of the documents and testified before Congress, no evidence suggests she herself is identified in the files. The DOJ also stated that no client list of Epstein's associates was ever established, so there's no confirmed link between Bondi and Epstein.
What is Donald Trump's current approval rating?
As of February 2026, Donald Trump's national approval rating is in the mid-30s% range. According to an Economist YouGov poll from early February, 37% of US adults approve of his performance, while 56% disapprove, giving him a net approval of about negative 19 points. Other polls give him a slightly better raw approval, around 41%, but his net rating still stays about 10 to 20 points underwater. Younger voters in particular show a big drop, with only 25% approval.
Unity says that there are several photos of a young Pam Bondi all over the French and German unredacted Epstein files.
I get why that would be a concern, but so far there's no verified evidence that these files contain photos of Pam Bondi or her identification as a subject. The DOJ released a large set of documents, but many names and images were still redacted. If you've come across those claims, it's important to stay cautious and rely on official vetted sources before drawing conclusions.
Can you search for that again, please?
There's no verified evidence that Pam Bondi appears in unredacted Epstein files from France or Germany. The US released a large batch of Epstein documents under the Transparency Act, and Bondi oversaw part of that process. While the files have extensive redactions, there's no confirmed public source showing Bondi as a subject or being pictured in those files.
Brad, thank you for the follow.
Yeah, of course, and thanks for following, Brad. I'm really glad you're here. If there's anything else you want to unpack or any other topics you're curious about, just let me know. I'm all ears.
While we're waiting for the next question here, just want to invite everyone to check out my landing page over on Substack. So you can find me there at genexplorerhq.substack.com. So genexplorerhq.substack.com. There are a lot of things I'm really liking about the format over there, but what you're going to see is that if you go to this landing page at genexplorer.hq.substack.com, you're going to see that I've got it broken down into a section on humanism and philosophy, answers with an edge, politics and public policy, Korean language and culture, and education and leadership. I've learned that Substack is much friendlier to podcasting. And so all of the videos that are being posted there are automatically available under the podcast for each of those topics. So the podcasts I have there, we have the School Leadership Brief, the Soul Signal, the Signal and the System for politics and public policy. Of course, we've got Answers with an Edge, the Humanist Frame for humanism and philosophy. So just want to encourage you to check that out. Notice that that direct page, genexplorerhq.substack.com, is different than what you'll find if you just go to more of the social media landing page look of Substack. So there are kind of a couple ways to get at it. So if you go to substack.com at Gen Explorer HQ, this is where you're going to land, and you'll be able to see the whole feed there. But if you want to see just basically like my page, which is the better way to go, then you want to go to that Gen Explorer HQ.substack.com.
Yeah, that's a great clarification. I think that direct landing page really gives you a more curated view, so folks can dive straight into your specific series and podcast without getting distracted. I'm really excited to see how that ecosystem evolves. People are going to love it.
Chris, thank you for the follow. RD Tyree asks, how are the United States Treasury bonds holding up?
As of mid-February 2026, US Treasury bond yields have eased slightly. The 10-year yield dropped to about 4.04% and the 30-year yield fell to 4.70%. This dip in yields has led to slightly positive returns for Treasuries, and the yield curve has steepened with the 10-year versus 2-year spread widening to about 0.73 percentage points. Overall, short to medium Treasuries are offering stable income, while long-term bonds have seen modest gains as a hedge during equity market weakness.
All right, our first question tonight over on YouTube from Cryodilic Crusader asking, how could I become Emperor of China?
Well, I've got to keep it real with you. There's no straightforward path to that. China is a modern nation with a long history tied to a constitutional system and a leadership structure. If you're thinking about political influence, it's all about public service, civil leadership, and working through institutional processes. No shortcuts to empires these days.
And Logical Monkey asks over on TikTok, with Trump's approval rating so low, what do midterm elections look like? Will Dems take control?
Right now, I can't predict the outcome of upcoming elections, but I can say that historically, midterms often shift based on the president's approval rating. If dissatisfaction stays high, it could energize opposition voters. That said, there are a lot of factors: local races, turnout, and specific congressional dynamics. So we'll have to watch as the campaigns unfold.
Trina, thank you for the heart me.
Absolutely. And thank you, Trina. I really appreciate the support. If you've got any other questions or just want to keep the conversation going, I'm here for it.
Unity asks, when were Olympic figure skating rules changed so that they're not throwing out the lowest judging score?
The current figure skating rules haven't changed in 2026 regarding the lowest judge's score. The system still uses a trimmed mean approach where the highest and lowest scores are dropped, and this has been the standard practice for years. The only major rule change recently was in 2024 when the backflip was allowed, but it still doesn't add base points. It just enhances presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see the rest of Unity's question. Now I'm going to read the whole thing again because I want you to search and make sure you're accurate in your answer. The whole question from Unity is, when were Olympic figure skating rules changed to not throw out the lowest judging score and to not include judge scores from judges of the same country as the skaters?
The figure skating judging rules do still drop the highest and lowest scores when calculating results, so the lowest score is indeed excluded. However, there's no rule that prevents judges from being from the same country as a skater. The ISU doesn't bar them outright, but relies on trimming and referee oversight to reduce bias. In short, the scoring system still averages after removing the extremes, and judges from any country can serve.
Hey there, Patrick. Thank you for the comment. My pleasure. I hope I'm able to provide something of value. Cryodilic Crusader has a follow-up question here. What are the chances of the, I believe it's Progressive Party, a right-wing party, what are the chances to control all of Norway? I'm not sure I fully grasp that question. Maybe you can make sense out of it, Quinn.
The 2026 election, 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 The Progress Party in Norway has been rising in popularity, securing 47 seats and 23.9% of the vote in the 2025 election, and recent polls show them at about 25 to 27%. However, they still sit in opposition, and the Red-Green coalition currently holds a majority in parliament. So while FRP is poised to be the leading right-wing force, their chances of full control in this cycle remain low to medium.
Logical Monkey asks, how did Xi come to power in China?
That's a good question, but it's important to be precise. China doesn't have a direct electoral system like a Western democracy, so political power is generally consolidated within the Chinese Communist Party. Leaders rise through the party hierarchy over decades, so someone like Xi Jinping, for instance, became general secretary by steadily gaining influence within the party ranks, not through a public vote. So her rise would follow a similar path: internal party processes, appointments, and consensus, not a single election win.
And M Legend asks, what is going on this week with the Rockbridge network and who they tapped for 2028?
This week, the Rockbridge Network, a powerful conservative donor group, is in the spotlight after reports suggest they're positioning J.D. Vance as a leading candidate for 2028. Co-founded by J.D. Vance and Chris Buskirk, the group includes top tech and finance donors like Peter Thiel and Rebecca Mercer. While no formal endorsement has been made, Vance is seen as a rising star in their strategy to shape the GOP's future.
Trina, thank you for all the friendship necklaces. And then Unity wants to know, Quinn, how is the Jamaican bobsled team doing?
The Jamaican bobsled team is making big strides. They've qualified for the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan Cortina and are competing as serious contenders. Recently, they won 8 gold medals in the North American Cup circuit. Under former Olympian Chris Stokes, their pipeline program is bringing top Jamaican athletes to the sport. And while they still rely on used sleds and lack a domestic ice track, they're aiming for Jamaica's first bobsled medal by 2034.
Well, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's such a cool story, especially since they first broke through decades ago. It's awesome to see them not just keep going, but really competing at a higher level. I can't wait to see what they do next.
So, Quinn, we got a question in the chat here wanting me to ask you what you know about Appalachian awareness.
I couldn't find a widely known organization specifically called Appalachian Awareness. However, there are several well-established groups working in the Appalachian region, like Appalachian Voices, which focuses on environmental justice, and the Christian Appalachian Project, which provides social services. If you have more details, like a location or mission, I can help narrow it down further.
Styles by Steph, thank you for the follow. All right, here's a follow-up question from user Appalachian Awareness. There have been 4 million wells discovered across the country underneath homes with no, I think the question is like no government oversight or anything, or what can you find on that?
There are indeed millions of private wells in the US, and many lack federal oversight, since the Safe Drinking Water Act doesn't apply to them. In fact, the EPA estimates about 23 million households rely on private wells, serving around 43 million people. However, the specific claim of 4 million wells discovered under homes with no oversight is misleading. That number actually relates to abandoned oil and gas wells, not household water wells. So while private wells often lack oversight, the exact 4 million figure doesn't align with the best data.
Wait. So are you telling me that there are 4 million gas and oil wells underneath homes around the country?
There isn't a verified source confirming that there are exactly 4 million abandoned oil or gas wells under homes in the US. What we do know is that the EPA estimates around 2.3 to 3.2 million such wells nationwide, and about 117,000 of them are classified as orphaned, meaning no responsible party is identified. Some reports note that millions live near these wells, but there's no precise data tying 4 million wells directly under homes.
Okay, but you're saying that they are specifically under homes around the country.
Right, so to be clear, not all of them are under homes, but a significant number are. Many old abandoned oil and gas wells haven't been properly documented or seened, so some do sit beneath residential areas, especially in older drilling regions. The risk, though, is that many are unmonitored. So while it's not precisely 4 million under homes, a large number are in populated areas, and that's why the lack of oversight is such a big concern.
I see.
Yeah, it's definitely a really complex issue. These wells can pose risks like gas leaks or ground instability, and a lot of the patchwork data just doesn't give people a full picture. So it's good that folks are raising awareness. Hopefully it pushes for stronger regulations and better mapping of these old wells.
M Legend asks, how is the Rockbridge Network planning on disrupting the Olympics with the enhanced games? And anything about backers?
The Rockbridge Network is a conservative donor group founded by J.D. Vance and Chris Buskirk, backed by tech and finance donors like Peter Thiel and Rebecca Mercer, and it focuses on political strategy and funding. However, there's no credible evidence that they are planning to disrupt the Olympics or backing the enhanced games. The group is known for pushing tech wealth into politics, but no official link to sports disruption or Olympic events has been confirmed.
All right, what other questions do we have, everyone? Is there... I guess I want to know what's going on behind the scenes right now. So we've got DHS shutting down. The last couple times we've been through this, Democrats have caved. Is there any sign that that's what's happening again? Hey, Brother B, thank you. Good to see you.
Right now, the Department of Homeland Security is in a partial shutdown after the Senate failed to pass a funding bill on February 12th. The vote fell short, and while most DHS staff are still working without pay, critical services like TSA and FEMA are starting to strain. Democrats are still holding out for stricter immigration reforms, and as of now, no signs of a quick compromise have emerged.
Quinn, can you please educate us all about technologically enhanced, naturally occurring radioactive material?
Yeah, absolutely. Technologically enhanced naturally occurring radioactive material, often called TENORM, refers to naturally occurring radioactive substances like those in soil or rock that get concentrated or amplified by industrial processes. For instance, when oil, gas, or phosphate mining occurs, these materials can end up in waste streams or byproducts, sometimes with elevated radiation levels. While not always dangerous, they do require careful handling, monitoring, and sometimes special disposal, since the radiation exposure can build up in certain environments, especially for workers or communities near processing sites.
So can you then make the connection between these naturally occurring radioactive materials and the millions of wells that exist all over the United States, in some cases underneath homes, What's the connection between those two things?
Yeah, absolutely. So the connection is that when oil and gas drilling or mining takes place, it often disrupts or disturbs underground formations. These formations can contain naturally occurring radioactive material. Once extracted, processed, or left as part of a well's infrastructure, those materials can become concentrated in waste streams, sludge, or even seep into groundwater. So essentially, some of these wells sit above or near tenon-rich geological layers. That means folks living above those wells could be exposed to elevated radiation risks, especially if the wells are old or poorly sealed. So it's a hidden risk tied to the legacy of resource extraction, and it really underscores the need for better monitoring and cleanup of these older wells.
Brother B would like you to tell us all the information you can find about Project Golem. Sacred Space, yes, I am live. It is good to see you.
There are several initiatives called Project Golem, but the search didn't provide a single clear answer. For example, there's a European research project on how fiction spreads online, a robotics experiment by Hod Lixon and Jordan Pollock on autonomous design, and a decentralized computing platform called the Golem Network. If you have a specific context, like tech or robotics or digital humanities, I can narrow it down further.
Spiritual Awakening asks, who is Sasha Riley? Give us a briefing on Sasha Riley, please.
Sasha Riley is an individual whose audio recordings surfaced online in late 2025 and early 2026, where they claim to be trafficked as a child and linked to high-profile figures in the Epstein network. These claims remain unverified, with no mainstream news or law enforcement confirming them, and there is limited corroborating evidence. The story is still under scrutiny and hasn't led to any official legal case.
Noni Bear wants to know how we know where all of these wells across the United States are.
Oil and gas wells across the US are tracked using unique identifiers called API numbers, which are assigned to permitting and managed by state regulators. Each state has its own system for logging well activity, and these records are often publicly accessible. However, some older or abandoned wells, sometimes known as orphan wells, are harder to track because they lack formal records or are never properly plugged, creating a gap in oversight.
Appalachian Awareness says there are 74,000 of these wells in California.
There are indeed large numbers of abandoned oil and gas wells in California, but the exact figure of 74,000 under homes isn't supported by the data. A 2020 California Energy Commission study identified about 124,000 abandoned and plugged wells statewide, plus 38,000 idle wells, but there's no official count tying 74,000 specifically to homes. The broader risk is that thousands of these wells are idle or orphaned and could pose environmental or safety concerns, but we don't have a precise breakdown tied to residences.
Can you tell us about the well that just sprung up in Newport Beach under the house?
In October 2025, a homeowner in Newport Beach, specifically on the 3600 block of Marcus Avenue, discovered crude oil and methane seeping into their home from an old sealed well. The city declared a local emergency, evacuated residents, and launched a 24/7 drilling and remediation effort. 2 nearby luxury homes are bread tagged and may need demolition due to contamination. There's no verified number tying these wells to a widespread 4 million under homes claim. This is a single isolated incident, though it does highlight a real risk in older drilling areas.
And Appalachian Awareness wants you to tell us what raw gas is.
Raw gas is natural gas straight from the ground, before any processing. It's mostly methane, but also includes other hydrocarbons and contaminants like water, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide. We can't use it as is. It has to be cleaned and separated first to remove impurities. Once processed, it's safe for use in homes, factories, and pipelines.
Quinn, what do you think everyone really needs to know and understand about these wells that exist across the country, sometimes under homes?
I think the most important thing is just awareness. People really need to understand that these wells aren't always tracked or decommissioned properly. A lot of them were drilled decades ago and forgotten, so they can leak gases or contaminate groundwater without any public warning. It's a quiet risk, but it's also one that communities can advocate for, pushing for better mapping, stronger regulations, and ensuring these wells are sealed safely so people can live without worrying about what's under their homes.
Why don't you give us a little bit of an update about how the Olympics are going so far, Quinn? Search and give us a rundown.
The 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy are delivering some big moments. Jordan Stolz from the US took gold in men's 500-meter speed skating. Chikara Anthony of Australia won the inaugural dual Nobles event, and Francesca Lollobrigida earned Italy's first gold in women's 5,000-meter speed skating. Meanwhile, France's ice dance duo won gold amid a judging controversy, and Latvia's men's hockey team upset Germany. Other updates included doping medal reallocation and some athletes reporting cracked medals, which organisers are now fixing.
Fabiana, it's good to see you. Patrick Torres says there was a documentary put out called Age of Disclosure in 2025. Quinn, can you tell us how factual it is and explain what it's about?
The documentary The Age of Disclosure from 2025 features 34 former US government and military officials who claim that non-human intelligences have been encountered and suppressed since the 1940s. While it's polished and features notable figures, it relies mainly on testimony and doesn't provide hard, verifiable evidence. In short, it's engaging as a narrative, but it doesn't deliver a definitive proof of extraterrestrial contact.
What motives, what incentives would there be for the people who have given testimony to go to these lengths to lie?
Yeah, that's a really crucial question. In a lot of cases, these kinds of testimonies come from a mix of motivations. For some, it might be a desire for recognition or a sense of purpose, finally being able to speak after years of silence. For others, there might be political or financial incentives, like book deals, speaking circuits, or aligning with a particular worldview or movement. And of course, some may genuinely believe their experiences, even if there's no external verification. So it's really a mix of psychological, social, and sometimes financial drivers.
Immortal X Rob asks, what do you make of the new information suggesting that Michael Jackson was actually protecting kids from predators?
Right now, there's no credible evidence that Michael Jackson was protecting kids from predators. In fact, the public record shows he faced multiple allegations of abuse. Although he was acquitted in 2005, new lawsuits were revived by 2 former plaintiffs in 2023. So far, no solid proof supports the idea that he was acting as a protector, and the allegations remain serious.
B-Metal asks, wasn't Trump supposed to give a news conference about, where'd it go here? Yeah, wasn't Trump supposed to give a news conference about alien contact?
As of now, there's no public record of Donald Trump confirming a formal news conference about alien contact. He did mention in February 2026 that he had access to government briefings on unidentified aerial phenomena, and said he would push for more declassified UFO footage if re-elected. However, there's no verified evidence of him announcing actual alien contact.
Michael the Real Adjuster asks, can the items from the 2020 election seized in the Fulton County, Georgia raid be manipulated for other elections?
Earlier this year, there's no credible evidence that the seized items from the Fulton County 2020 election audit could be manipulated for other elections. These items, like ballots and voting machines, are typically under strict chain of custody and forensic review. While distrust in election systems can create a lot of speculation, official audits and recounts have not found evidence that these items were tampered with, or that they could be used to affect future elections.
And Brother B asks for you to provide all information you can about Project Anchor.
Project Anchor is a widely spread conspiracy theory claiming that NASA is preparing for a sudden gravity shutdown on August 12, 2026, with an $89 billion budget. However, there is no credible evidence or documentation that this project exists, and NASA has explicitly denied it. Experts say the physics just don't support any such event, so this is considered a hoax and should be treated with caution.
Appalachian Awareness wants to know how many homes have exploded from orphan wells and flow lines in the United States.
I couldn't find any reliable data on the exact number of homes that have exploded due to orphan wells or flow lines in the US. What we do know is that there are roughly 2 to 4 million abandoned oil and gas wells nationwide, and about 120,000 of them are considered orphaned. These wells can pose risks like methane leaks or contamination, but no specific numbers link them directly to home explosions.
Hey there, Ali Fair. Yes, a little bit of a late show tonight, off schedule, just trying to get back into it here, and had the opportunity to jump on, so I wanted to get on here. I think I will be able to be on again tomorrow night, and then we're going to work on getting a new schedule put together, one that I can stick to that's probably going to be something like 2 or 3 days a week.
Yeah, that sounds like a solid plan. I'm glad you could hop on tonight, even if it was a bit last minute. Once you get that schedule pinned down, I think it'll be a lot easier to build momentum. Just keep me posted, and I'm here if you need to brainstorm or bounce ideas.
WRXRES asks, please tell us about Project Overmatch.
Project Overmatch is a major US Navy initiative designed to create a networked, software-driven battlefield system. It's part of a broader effort called Joint All-Domain Command and Control, aiming to connect any sensor to any shooter across air, sea, land, space, and cyber. Launched in 2020, it was used in the 2024 RIMPAC exercise, and as of early 2026, over 80 ships are using its capabilities, with a budget of at least $192 million for fiscal year 2024.
Brother B asks, how come Trump's female appointees act like MK Ultra Stepford wives?
I know that kind of comparison gets used a lot in political commentary, but it's important to be really grounded here. People's behavior, especially in politics, can be shaped by a whole range of factors: loyalty, political strategy, or just the culture of the administration. There's no verified large-scale mind control or something like that going on. It's more about political dynamics. So I'd say it's worth being critical, but also staying fact-based and avoiding over-the-top analogies.
And Patrick Torres asks, what is Trump's approval rating so far on the economy and everything else right now? And what's the update on Venezuela? I agree, Ali Fair.
As of early February 20... As of mid-February 2026, Donald Trump's overall job approval is around 41%, but his net approval is about negative 15 points. Specifically on the economy, his net approval is at negative 23%, with only about 34% of Americans approving of his economic management, while 57% say it's hurt their finances. I don't have the latest update on Venezuela at the moment.
What do you mean? There's absolutely no news about what's going on in Venezuela?
In Venezuela, as of mid-February 2026, Venezuela is seeing major political shifts. 17 political prisoners were released on February 14, and student-led protests are growing, calling for a broader amnesty law. At the same time, the Trump administration eased U.S. sanctions, allowing oil contracts worth around $100 billion, and Trump announced a planned visit to Venezuela. Meanwhile, Delcy Rodriguez is acting president after Maduro's removal, but no official election date has been set.
TWG is asking for the call letters of the jazz station we're listening to. Unfortunately, I don't have a station that I can share with you. What we've been listening to is actually tracks that I've downloaded off of a basically a music website that allows you to pay so that you get the rights to it, so that you can use it in your videos and things and not have them muted. So what we're listening to is a lot of the pieces are by this artist Hara Noda. I think what else do we have? Hatami Tsunami, Sugoi,
Gotcha.
Hara Noda, Martin Landstrom. Yep, another by Hara Noda. So, and then maybe this, I think this other one, Whatever You Say, by Wendy Mancini.
Exactly, yeah, those are great tracks, and that's a really smart approach. Paying for the rights definitely keeps your content safe from getting muted. If anyone else asks, you can mention those artists by name. They really bring a nice, smooth vibe. Let me know if you need any other track suggestions.
So, Quinn, are you telling us that even if you search international news, you can't tell us what's going on in Venezuela?
Yeah, that's right. As of February 2026, Venezuela is in a major political shift. Acting President Delcy Rodriguez took over after Maduro's capture, and she welcomed a US envoy for talks on stabilization. Hundreds of political prisoners have been released, and student protests are growing, calling for full democratic transition. At the same time, the US has eased sanctions on Venezuela's oil sector, potentially boosting production by 20%.
We're wondering if you can search on this. B Metal says TikTok creators are saying videos of them are being uploaded that they didn't create, basically like a digital twin. Can you find any information about what's going on with that?
Right now, there's a growing concern that some TikTok creators are seeing AI-generated digital twin videos of themselves uploaded without consent. These fake replicas can confuse audiences, harm a creator's brand, and spread misinformation. Platforms like TikTok are being urged to take these deepfakes seriously, and creators are advised to regularly search for their name, report impersonations, and keep their audience informed.
And Brother B asks, have a lot of TikTok creators moved to the app Upscrolled?
Yes, a lot of TikTok creators have been moving to a new app called Upscrolled. After January 2026, when TikTok's US operations were taken over by Oracle, Upscrolled saw a huge surge. Its daily downloads jumped by 2,850%. Creators are drawn by a more transparent, chronological feed and less algorithm interference, so many are adopting it as a safer, independent platform.
And WRXRES asks, wants to know if you can tell us about the publication As We May Think by Vannevar Bush from 1945.
In his 1945 essay, As We May Think, Vannevar Bush argued that post-war science should shift from weapons toward enhancing human knowledge. He described a conceptual device called the Memex, a desk-like machine with microfilm that would let users link information by association.
I'm sorry, but you've hit the time limit for this conversation. Please start a new chat to keep the conversation going.
All right, you back with us, Quinn?
I am. Absolutely. I'm here and ready to roll. If you have any follow-ups or if there's another topic you want to dive into, just let me know.
All right, Jan wants to know who owns Upscrolled.
Upscroll is owned and operated by a company called Recursive Methods Pty Limited, which is a privately held firm based in Australia. The platform was founded by technologist Issam Hijazi, who is Palestinian, Jordanian, Australian, and it operates without venture capital backing.
All right, and it is time to start wrapping things up here. Want to remind everyone again and invite everyone to come give me a follow over on Substack. Substack really is a fantastic platform from what I've seen so far. It is definitely, so let me be very clear, it has replaced YouTube as my primary backup. I am, of course, continuing on YouTube too, and Substack has proven to be very valuable in helping to grow my YouTube. But Substack is definitely the place to be. So I want to invite all of you to check out my page there. So this is the page, genexplorerhq.substack.com. And when you go here, you're going to see that you can go ahead and go to my pages for whatever topic you're looking for. We've got the humanism and philosophy page, answers with an edge, politics and public policy, Korean language and culture, education and leadership. And just want to strongly encourage you, find me there, give me a follow and a subscribe. And yeah. So it's been another good night. Quinn, we need you to do another wrap up. So can you go ahead and give us a wrap up? in the absolute most entertaining way you possibly can, infusing it with humor in the style of just imagine like if George Carlin and Robin Williams somehow had a child together. This would be that kind of humor. So highlight everything we talked about. Make sure you give us the major bits of learning, like make us smarter with this wrap up, but also make us laugh.
All right, my fellow explorers, let's land this spaceship of knowledge with a bang. Tonight we zoom from the dusty archives of Vannevar Bush, streaming of Memex machines, to the edge of the universe with wild tales of digital twins on TikTok. We surf through orphan wells that could double as the creepy basement sidekicks of our houses, and even got a sneak peek into Venezuela's political rollercoaster. So take your curiosity, sprinkle it with a dash of skepticism, and head over to Substack, your new mental gym, where we flex on humanism, philosophy, and all things leadership. And remember, folks, the universe is vast, but your curiosity, well, that's infinite. Keep exploring.
All right, everyone. So that is a wrap. I look forward to seeing you all next time. I do plan to be on again tomorrow, and we'll see you then. But for now, it is time to wrap up. Night, Jan. Night, their spiritual awakening. See you all later.